All right, everyone, let's settle in. All right, everyone, let's settle in. We're moving into a heavy section of Koetting's Evoking Eternity. We've been talking about the mechanics of command, but here he shifts from the how-to of summoning a spirit to something much more visceral. The angle today is the architect versus the vessel. Is the magician building a structure to hold a power, or are they just tearing themselves down to let it in?
I'm just glad I'm calling in for my couch today, Seth. If I were in the studio for this part, I'd be checking the ceiling for cracks.
Because of the earthquakes he promises?
Exactly. Look, he's describing the actual moment of contact. He says you pull the spirit to you using the smoke, the fire, the physical world. He gives the specific command. Hear my voice. See my signs. Let your power become my power.
Let your power become my power. Typical. He's asking for a hostile takeover of the ego.
But look at how he describes the physicality of it. He says you touch the face of the sigil, saturating the paper with light, and then he says the spirit will rise, and you will see it face to face, just like a person.
That sounds, well, almost too easy. Like, just walk up to a demon like you're meeting a neighbor.
But then he hits this pivot. He says the most unforgettable part isn't the sight, but the touch. He says the spirit's fingers don't press against your skin, but softly pass through muscle and bone.
Okay, that's officially creepy. That's not a handshake. That's a haunting.
It's like that time I was trying to play a heavy set, and the bass was so deep I could feel my teeth vibrating. It's not on you, it's through you.
That's the point. He says the spirit's mind doesn't even need a brain because it's everywhere. And when that touch happens, the practitioner ceases to be human for a moment. They become immortal. They become the spirit.
Wait, so he's saying the ritual isn't about bringing something here. It's about turning us into something else?
Exactly. He says a part of your soul leaves you and something else moves in.
Which is a great way to explain away a psychotic break, isn't it? Oh, I'm not losing my mind, Seth. I'm just experiencing a subjective synthesis.
Well, let's hold on to that skepticism, Jane, because the next part gets even more ambitious. He claims that because we are part of the machine of creation, we can use these methods to summon anything. Seraphim, jinn, even the dead. He says if you have the secret knowledge, everything will be brought to your door.
It's a wish fulfillment pitch. Bring me the keys to the universe and I'll put them on your hearth.
But, and this is a huge but, he introduces a massive caveat. He says you can't just jump into the deep end with the big players. He says if you try to evoke a demon when you're only used to simple planetary spirits, you might get swallowed by hellfire.
He's actually being somewhat cautious here, which is surprising. He says the danger isn't just the spirit, but our own. Patterns of perception, prejudices, and fears.
Or the limits of the material world being unable to hold a god. I mean, talk about high stakes. He's basically saying if you summon a deity, you might trigger an earthquake or a hurricane.
I mean, I've seen a bad comedy set because of riot, but a hurricane? That's a bit much, even for me.
But look at how he proposes we handle the big ones. He moves away from command and toward devotion. He says for a deity, you need 2 levels of devotion. The first is intellectual studying the ancient texts, the history.
And the second is the actual lifestyle. You have to live as if the deity is already there, wearing their colors, carrying their symbols. It's almost like a continuous ritual.
It sounds less like magic and more like a cult of one. Every minute, every word must serve the deity.
But look at the method he prescribes for the actual evocation. He says you don't command them. You pray. You kneel. You let the deity fill you. He says the deity won't appear in a solid form right away. Instead, they just thicken the presence. The air gets heavier or lighter or colder. It's not a materialization. It's a condensation of their omnipresence into your room.
That's actually beautiful. It's not a puppet appearing on a stage. It's the atmosphere changing because something massive is leaning into the room.
Or it's just a drafty window and a sudden drop in barometric pressure.
Hey, if the air gets thick enough to touch, I'm in. But I'm staying seated. I've had enough explosions for 1 month.
He ends this section by saying the I must undergo a full metamorphosis before the deity will ever show a face. You have to break the self to see the divine.
It's the cost. You get the god, but you lose the person.
Okay, let's look at where he's going next. He's moving away from the theory and into the actual, well, the script. He says these incantations weren't written by him, but given to him by entities that exist outside any classification.
Outside any classification. That's a pretty big claim, Seth.
It is, and he says they're fiery in nature so much so that an untrained eye might mistake them for demonic or infernal.
Of course, everything is demonic if you are part of the in crowd.
But look at how he describes the language itself. He says it's concise, mostly untranslatable, and carries a wild, untamable magic power that makes any mantra or sutra he's ever encountered look like child's play.
I mean, if you're the guy who discovered the language, of course it's better than everything else. That's like a chef saying his secret sauce is better than every other sauce in history.
True, but he gives very specific instructions on how to say it. You have to use a clear, calm voice. No pauses. You don't finish one word before starting the next. It has to be a continuous, rhythmic stream.
Like a loop? Like a mantra that builds on itself?
Exactly, he says the repetition actually speeds up naturally. The first few times, it's just to tune your mind to the rhythm, letting the energy enter your being. But then, he says after the third repetition, the effect starts.
And here comes the payoff.
He quotes his own work, Works of Darkness, describing the mental state. He says your mind and body soar into the higher stratosphere of the soul. And then this is the part that ties back to what we said earlier about the brain. He says the brain gets tired of the complex phrases and just switches off.
So the brain literally shuts down to let the magic happen?
He says that. He says the words start to blur, they trip over each other. You might even start making up new words that sound just as alien. He calls it reaching critical mass. The spell becomes independent of the magician's will. It's just ringing in the air.
The spell is audible only to the mage and his god. That is the best way to avoid a peer review, Seth. If you didn't hear it, you just aren't vibrating high enough.
Ha! Hey, I've been at concerts where the sound engineer was the only one who could hear the bass. But wait, he says this leads to glossolalia? Like, speaking in tongues?
Yeah. He says it can lead to temporary dementia, where you're shaking on the floor, lost in ecstasy, or even convulsing in your temple. He compares it to voodoo, or Pentecostalism.
That sounds intense, and honestly a little terrifying. You're basically inviting a complete loss of self.
And he's calling it grace.
But, and here is the crucial part, he says the real work isn't the explosion. He says the most important part is the silent unity with the God. That you start every day and end every day with that deity in your heart.
Okay, I can get behind that. That's just being a devotee. That's not a heart attack, that's just lifestyle.
But then he scales it up. He talks about the 13th day. After 13 days of this devotion, you move to the next level association. You start evocation of the servants of that god to ask them how to actually bring the big boss into physical form.
So first you lose your mind, then you spend 2 weeks interviewing the help.
And he says the spirits will be wary at first. They won't just give you the blueprint. You have to be persistent. But eventually, they'll tell you the specifics. And this is where it gets, he says, standard sigils and incense aren't enough.
What else is there?
He says the spirits might tell you that the incense needs to be warm steam rising from fresh blood, or that the symbol must be carved directly into the skin of the magician.
Okay, no, I'm out. I'm officially staying on my couch.
See? This is what I'm talking about. It's not spirituality. It's a recipe for a crime scene.
He claims it's necessary. He says the 4th level preparation requires flawless execution of these instructions. He says the danger of invoking a deity is so high that the power could force oceans to swallow even the highest mountain peaks.
It sounds like he's describing a total environmental catastrophe.
And then, the 5th level. The final level. Sacrifice.
I knew it was coming. I felt it in my bones.
He says everything great is built on blood. He says you don't call a god for a small errand. You called him to trigger the apocalyptic harvest and bring back the Garden of Eden. He claims that without blood sacrifice, you simply cannot expect a deity to appear in physical form.
Well, I guess I'll just stick to my morning tea and a bit of yoga. It's much less likely to cause an apocalypse.
But you have to admit, Seth, there's something strangely magnetic about the idea that there's a way to make the divine actually tangible, even if the price is, well, everything.
Okay, we are officially in the deep end now. We've moved past the how-to, and we are reading Koetting's personal account of the 17th initiation. This isn't just a manual anymore, it's a memoir of a heavy-duty encounter.
17th initiation. Does he ever just, I don't know, go to the grocery store without a cosmic checklist?
Apparently not. He says his order gives tasks based on individual spiritual, emotional, and psychological needs. And as you progress, the stakes just escalate. He says by the time you hit the 18th initiation, each exam can take months or even years to pass.
Man, I can barely commit to a gym membership for a month. This guy is playing a completely different game.
He is, and look at the date December 18th, 2002. He says he received instructions for this 17th task to evoke a god in physical form. But, and here's the kicker, he won't even name the entity. He calls it D in his diaries.
That's such a classic occult move. I can't tell you who it is, but trust me, it's huge.
It's also a perfect way to avoid anyone calling him out on a hallucination. Oh, D was great, but I can't tell you his name because of cosmic secrecy.
True, but look at the setting he chooses. He describes a night with a full moon and this incredibly thick, unusual fog. He finds this abandoned racquetball court right next to one of the oldest cemeteries in the country. It's an open-air hall made of cinder blocks with no roof, just the moon hanging over it.
An abandoned sports court next to a graveyard? That's not a ritual space, Seth. That's the opening scene of a low-budget horror movie.
It's atmospheric, I'll give him that. He says the silence was ringing, and he could almost feel his spells traveling through the air to reach sleeping people. He goes in, meditates, and starts drawing the circles. He uses a large piece of chalk to draw the main circle, and then a smaller one to the west, with 3 foreign signs marking the vertices of an invisible triangle.
Wait, he's using foreign signs to mark a triangle? That sounds so geometric, yet so alien.
It's very precise. He places a bowl in the smaller circle and pours in what he calls the base for embodiment. He says the smell and the thick vapors alone were enough to provide the spirit a body, without even needing fire or smoke.
See, this is where I lose it. A substance so potent, it creates a body via scent. I mean, come on.
But then he gets to the sacrifice. He says he mixes blood with that base substance in the bowl. And the second he starts the incantations, the presence of D arrives much faster and closer than he expected. He says the dark vapors started rising from the bowl, and the body of his god began to form right in front of him.
And let me guess, it wasn't a cute little sprite.
No, he describes it as a giant figure shrouded in shadows, as tall as the walls of the court. Its eyes were shifting from fiery red to an unearthly green, and its voice. It didn't come from a mouth, Paco. It erupted from its chest like thunder.
That's not a conversation. That's an acoustic trauma.
And here's the moment where he almost fails the test. He says he had practiced the greeting for so long, but the moment he saw this thing, his mind went blank. He forgot the whole script. All he could manage was, with as much confidence as he could muster, D, give me all your power.
Oh my god, that is the most human moment in the whole book. He's terrified, he's looking at a mountain of shadow, and he just blunders.
Give me your power. It's like a teenager asking a superhero for a ride to the mall.
But look at the reaction. He expected mockery, but D actually laughed. A joyful laugh. And instead of crushing him, the entity says, you already possess it.
Wait, that's a total reframe. He's there trying to steal power, and the god basically tells him, stop looking outside and look at yourself.
Exactly. He says the entity started instructing him like a patient teacher on how to manipulate his own subtle bodies. But then, it gets even more intense. The entity reaches out its hand, passes it over the line of the circle, and asks if he wants to follow.
And there it is. The trap. The classic leave the circle and die moment.
He admits he was terrified. He wondered if this was a trap to hand him over to demons or throw his soul into hell. But he couldn't say no. He says he soared out of his physical body through the open roof of the court.
And where did he go?
He says he didn't see the city. He saw the panorama of all creation. And Di wasn't dark or terrifying anymore. He looked like a being of pure, magnificent power. He says he was blinded by the grace radiating from him.
So the terror was just his own ego's reaction to something it couldn't process?
That's exactly what he's claiming. And then, the entity looks down at the entire universe, the stars, the galaxies, and says, all of this is yours, if you can take it.
The marketing is incredible. The universe is yours. Just follow the instructions and don't die.
He says the entity then showed him 3-dimensional visions of how to use pure creation and destruction to accelerate his will. And then, just as suddenly, he was shoved back into his body. He doesn't even know if his physical body was still awake or if it had fallen into a trance.
I think if I did that, I'd be out of commission for a week. My brain would be fried.
He says it was too exhausting for any flesh, but he ends this account with a massive claim. He says, since that day he has learned to control his evocation. He says, through evocation, he gained power over the earth and its elements. He says he has summoned legions to war.
He's claiming he's become a cosmic general.
He says, and I quote, I learned from a god that through these secret and forbidden sciences I can become just like him, and even more so.
And much better for the teeth. No blood required. Oh, hold on, I think I hear the doorbell. The Mexican food is actually here.
Perfect, because if I hack to hear about cosmic generals for one more minute without a taco, I'm going to revolt.